Hi, this is Dean Butler. You're listening to TV Confidential.
SCTV now begins its programming day. Starring John Candy.
Ed Robertson welcoming you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television that will continue our conversation we started in our previous segment about the release of Three-Cornered Circle, the latest book released by Robert Crane and Christopher Fryer that is a screenplay adaptation of one of the most interesting and most intriguing subplots of Bob and Chris's book, Crane, Sex, Celebrity, and My Father's Unsolved Murder, that tells the story of how Bob lands the job of a lifetime when comedian and motion picture superstar John Candy hires Bob as his publicist and personal confidant circa 1985-1986, a time when Bob was married to landscape designer Kari Hildebrand. Kari had a very successful career and a husband in Bob who loved her. But when she is diagnosed with cancer, everything suddenly changed. Both Bob and Kari had to decide what was important in life and how to figure out how to balance life, career, and marriage, all while facing the imminent realities of mortality. Three-Cornered Circle, story of love, laughter, and loss, available wherever books are sold through Kill Fee Productions. Three-Cornered Circle also available as a print book and as an ebook, Amazon.com, wherever books are sold online. Joining us now is our friend Christopher Fryer. Christopher Fryer, Robert Crane's longtime collaborator on many books on movies and television. Chris has written for such publications as Condé Nast Traveler, Playboy Magazine, and the New York Times as well. He is co-author of Three-Cornered Circle, and we talked about this a little bit with Bob earlier, Chris. One of the main reasons I understand to release this book now was to celebrate the life and career of John Candy and how much that meant to Bob.
Yes, absolutely. And it came out of our book that we did, Bob's memoir, Sex, Celebrity, and My Father's Unsolved Murder. And this is just kind of that book, but eliminating the murder part and just focusing on Bob's incredible story that unfolded with his wife and his job and his friendship with John Candy. And we just wanted to kind of celebrate that, and we thought the best way to do that was as a screenplay, which is what Three-Cornered Circle is. And it came together fairly quickly. It's a format that he and I are really well versed in from the time we were teenagers at USC writing scripts on the roof of our dorm. We seem to work well in that format, and it came together pretty quickly.
Well, one advantage about the screenplay format versus long-form prose is you have to write with economy. You have to convey as vivid pictures as possible and as much emotion as possible. You have to pack a lot and not a lot of words. That's not as easy as it sounds.
Right, and one of the tricky things that I've learned over the years, and having written a number of screenplays, is that what you have to convey is all done through the dialogue. You don't have the opportunity in a screenplay to have the exposition, unless you're doing like a voiceover or something like that. But you can't have the exposition. You have to have the dialogue tell the story. And there's nothing I hate more than dialogue in films that is just manipulated to move the story along. So if you can't show it or tell it in the dialogue, then you've got a problem.
Yeah, and you have to recognize what you have. The story that you and Bob tell in Three-Cornered Circle, Chris, there's natural highs and lows and natural built-in drama, and so you don't want to put a lot of excess extraneous stuff in there because it takes away from the emotional impact of the story itself, and particularly, that 5 or 6 year period in Bob's life when he underwent, after already going through the murder of his father and the trauma and all of that, he ends up losing two of the most important people of his life within a very short period of time.
Yeah, in a way, it's a horrifying story. It's, you think that the murder of a parent is enough catastrophe for any one person in their lifetime. And Bob's story is just this incredible roller coaster of highs and lows. He meets Kari, they get married, they're enjoying their life. He gets this great job working for John Candy as his assistant, which then leads to actually making a film with John where Bob and Kari wrote the screenplay. John made his directorial debut with the film Hostage for a Day. And in short order, from the end of 1993 to early 94, March of 94, Bob loses his wife, his friend John Candy, his livelihood, and it's more than most people could cope with. And it speaks to Bob's resiliency as a person, and it's an amazing story.
It is an amazing story. Chris Fryer's co-author, along with Robert Crane, of Three-Cornered Circle, available through Kill Fee Publishing, Amazon.com, wherever books are sold online. Three-Cornered Circle, a screenplay released in book form, and it's an absorbing read. It's a quick read. But it's a quick read with depth. The way most movies are. You draw the readers in, and you give them a sense of the emotion and the ups and downs that Bob went through during this particular period of his life.
Right. Very true.
Yeah. Christopher Fryer, co-author of Three-Cornered Circle, joining us now over the phone.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Hi, this is Ann Archer, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Tonight, on Fox Night at the Movies, nobody would be crazy enough to fake their own kidnapping. Until now, George Wendt and John Candy star in the world premiere of the outrageous comedy, Hostage for a Day.
The last time you visited our program, Chris, we talked a little bit about how you and Bob worked together in general. And if I remember correctly, when we talked specifically about working together on the book about the murder of his father, there were times when, if I remember correctly, you said you had to really dig down deep and draw stuff out of Bob, so that you know, because you knew there was emotion and you knew there was stuff beyond the surface that he had to get out, that he may not have gotten out if he was just writing about this himself. I would imagine the stories that the two interweaving stories you tell in Three-Cornered Circle in particular, those are both times when you had to draw stuff out of Bob.
Yes, that's true. And Bob is notoriously closed as far as talking about emotions and things like that. And my job, like you said, on the novel, not the novel, but on the memoir, was basically to draw him out.
Yeah.
And because I have the luxury of having lived much of his life with him and been there for many of the major events of his life, I had a certain insight to those events that other people didn't have. And it was up to me to try to get him to really confront and expound on what he was feeling. Three-Cornered Circle is a little different because we intended this as an entertainment to be a film, and we did in fact send it out a couple of places. I know Bob got in touch with the Ryan Reynolds people and his production company, and interestingly enough, Ryan Reynolds is doing a documentary about John Candy at the moment, and he was on Stephen Colbert the other night and talking about what a great guy John Candy was and just an amazing person, which I would agree. But because Three-Cornered Circle was meant to be an entertainment, we didn't have to do that deep a dive into the emotion. Hopefully the story projects the emotion. What you're watching on the screen or what you're reading about, you get it. You get the emotion. You don't need the background story because you're seeing the characters live it out.
Three-Cornered Circle by Robert Crane and Christopher Fryer, available in paperback and as an ebook through Kill Fee Publishing as well as Amazon.com. You touched on something else I wanted to ask you, Chris. Now, you were in L.A. At the time these events, the events that you capture in Three-Cornered Circle and in the Crane book, but since we're talking about Three-Cornered Circle, specifically Three-Cornered Circle, you were there at the time Bob lived through this. I mean, when you put it together in a screenplay, do you draw on anything you particularly remember as someone who was there at the time? I mean, and do you draw on that as you tell the story, or do you focus mostly on the material you had and just go from there?
Well, in the course of this, of course, we do, of course, use our own experiences when we write together. And because they are shared experiences, they overlap. Mm-hmm. But some of the dialogue in Three-Cornered Circle, I was talking to Bob recently because I said, I just reread this, and it holds up really well, and I was pleasantly surprised with that because I don't often go back and read these things. But and I said, there's a wonderful speech at the end after John's died, and the character of Bob, because it is lightly fictionalized, but the character of Bob gives this great speech at John's memorial about closure. Mm-hmm. And I was remarking to him about that, and he said, generously, he said, "Well, that was you, buddy." So a lot of that's how it kind of overlaps. It's my feelings about this horrible word that has become part of the vernacular, closure, which I just despise. I think when you have events in your life like the ones Bob has gone through, there is no closure. I I don't believe in closure at all. I just think it's a ridiculous word, because if you have someone who means a great deal to you, who you love, and they die, you keep them in your heart, and you think about them all the time. And why would you want to close that? I don't get it.
Well, that is some subject for a conversation in and of itself. Three-Cornered Circle, the newest book by Robert Crane and Christopher Fryer that depicts the period of Bob's life when he has to balance the professional high of landing the job of a lifetime as publicist and right-hand man to comedian and motion picture superstar John Candy, with the shocking news that his then-wife, landscape designer Kari Hildebrand, is diagnosed with cancer, and how Bob and Kari must decide what is important and figure out how to balance life and marriage while also facing the imminent realities of mortality. Three-Cornered Circle, story of love, laughter, and loss by Robert Crane and Christopher Fryer, available wherever books are sold, Amazon.com, other online retailers. Three-Cornered Circle, a screenplay released in book form, available as an ebook as well as a print edition. Okay, what else are you working on these days?
Nothing that I want to talk about. I'll just say this. I have a novel that I started, and it was a contemporary novel, and now it's a historical novel, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, all right. Well, if it comes to a form that you're happy with and you're ready to release it to the public and you want to talk about it, the door is always open for you to come back on our show.
Oh, well, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah. Is this something you're working on your own, or is this another collaboration with Bob?
No, it's something I've been working on myself for, I think it's coming on 40 years.
Oh, okay.
So it's the world's longest unpublished, unseen work.
Well, I'm sure when it's ready to go, it'll be quite good. Christopher Fryer will also be back next week for part 2 of our conversation. He will share a few stories about some of the funny encounters that he and Bob experienced with their mutual friend, John Candy. Part 2 of our conversation with Christopher Fryer also coming up next week on TV Confidential. In the meantime, Three-Cornered Circle by Robert Crane and Christopher Fryer, available wherever books are sold, through Amazon.com. We'll continue our look at This Week in TV History right after this.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go, and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-222-0511. 800-222-0511. Again, that's 800-222-0511.